The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. Intimacy is the quality of closeness and openness with somebody. And through an awakening experience, you become more close and have a deeper relationship with what reality is. This is why any state of the awakening and enlightenment process makes you feel more connected with your existence and with life, or with consciousness for that matter. And it is a mistake to believe that you can escape your problems through spirituality. They will actually heighten the problems that you have, because they are confronting you with the direct contact that you have with them all the time. Your own conscious awareness is producing a ton of sensations all the time, and you are processing so much information all the time. And what we humans do is we get so overwhelmed by the amount of information around us so that we start to filter things out. And we especially filter a lot of stuff out that happens internally within us. These are just habits that we have just repeated for such a long time that they seem normal to us. And now when you have had this habituated process that rejects what you're actually feeling, what you're actually thinking, what you're actually wanting, over long periods of time, well, then you lose contact with yourself. And you also lose contact with reality, because the vehicle with which you can experience reality is through yourself. So then you uncover the layers underneath your identity, and you find that what you are is immediately interconnected with reality. If you are a fundamental materialist, then you believe that consciousness isn't like a real thing, or not really an objective thing. It's just like this weird subjective illusion that is created through the brain. And therefore consciousness is kind of like an illusion that doesn't really exist. Spirituality flips this on its head, because then consciousness is the foundation of all reality, and nothing that exists in the material world can exist independent from consciousness. And it kind of makes intuitive sense. Like if you imagine that there was no living organism on this planet whatsoever, no conscious experience from like a life form, then it kind of intuitively makes sense that it is as if reality doesn't exist, because there's nobody there to perceive it. And if there's nobody there to perceive it, then there's no way to call it anything, right? So reality only exists because of consciousness. And consciousness, therefore, is then the foundation of what we call reality. And the split we make between material physics outside of us and consciousness within us is kind of arbitrary, because we always only have access to the conscious part of it. And to acknowledge this is part of a deeper connection with reality itself. This is why at a certain point, all of your very atheistic or very material framings lose touch with the emotional aspect of people. We know that if somebody is in pain, for example, that it matters, right? Like if we see somebody who needs help, we immediately want to do something about it. And it's because we have this immediate connection with something that is happening in our own surroundings, even if it's not happening to us. This means that everything you see, and this also includes like bacteria that's swarming around you right now, like particles in the air, or the intricacies of the technology that is happening, is also processing something. So even if you don't you just use your brain's consciousness as like the foundation that everything happens within, you can still acknowledge that outside of your own mind, there's a ton of stuff also processing itself in its own way. And then consciousness that the human brain produces, and maybe the technology in your computer, aren't actually that distinct. And they all are sort of language that processes information in reality. And it's this mechanism of processing that might be kind of the father or the mother of any sort of awareness at all. Like that consciousness is what processing is, and reality is like the sort of processing mechanism that processes everything that it could possibly process. And clearly it has an awareness of what it's doing, even if you want to say it just has this awareness through you as a human or through other animals. But I do think it is a very limited point of view if you think that only our human version of consciousness is the only thing that matters. It's very biased to how we are. Like if you just look at an ant, for example, then you have this very, very, very tiny organism that's part of such a huge network of organisms. And an ant has so many ways to communicate with its colony, and the way it like carries resources and explores and stuff. Like you can see that there's a lot of intelligence going on, even with something this tiny. So it clearly doesn't need brains for information processing to happen. It doesn't need this amount of complexity for something to be intelligent and have their own agency and their own things they want to get done. And then it is reasonable to think about reality as the system that is intelligent and tries to understand everything that is happening in its surroundings. And that's why the more you introspect into the nature of who you are as a person, you have a better relationship to all these mechanisms of information processing. And it's information processing that will make you live a good life. If you can effectively process what is going on, you're going to adapt in a way that aligns your own intentions with external intentions. If you notice that you want to actually be happy and you can see the way to be content, then you're naturally going to go into this direction once you can process the information accurately. But if you don't believe that you are the one who creates the relationship with existence and reality, then you might develop belief systems that limit you, that you believe you cannot do what you envision yourself would be nice, because reality has some sort of limiting force. And that's like what limiting beliefs are, right? Like we limit what is possible in existence because we cannot fathom that it is possible. And there's a lot of also, ego self-flagellation that comes with it, where people just don't trust themselves enough, and their own ego is kind of not solid enough to believe in what they're capable of. A lot of knots get liberated once you see that all the ideas you had about the future were completely fabricated, and there's really nothing to do but to deconstruct limiting beliefs and ways you are not intimate and open with reality. Because there's an openness that comes with deconstructing belief narratives. There's an intimacy that happens when you look at something for what it actually is like and not judge it preemptively. This is where the openness component comes as part of the closeness. That's what makes intimacy up. It is also an openness for potential. If you're feeling open to uncover your mind and see what lies underneath to create the life that you're envisioning, then check out my ego architecture audit in the link in the description. The quality of intimacy also implies vulnerability. It implies that something can happen to you that you are going to feel, kind of invaded by. This means that you can get hurt. And that's also the quality of openness and curiosity, right? Like if you're curious about what can happen, then you're going to experiment, and then you're going to be open to what can happen, and in this way you can get hurt. And that's why people go into their shells and never really explore what it is that is possible for them. The feeling of being made available to get hurt is kind of the main mechanism that either connects you deeper with life or prevents deeper engagement with life. If you are too scared to move outside of your comfort zone, then you'll forever be stuck where you are at this current level. And when you are curious enough to see what else is out there, then you might get burned, but you'll also uncover so much more that was inside of existence all the time. This means inside of your own potential, like what you can accomplish, how good you can feel as a person, like just how good you can wake up every day and just be content without like any big narratives going on. And also how still you can be even more productive, put better systems in place, and feel like life is more coherent in a way because you're not getting distracted anymore by the own, let's say, unsustainability of your own system. Because closing off yourself from the world or just deeper existential realization can work for a while. Like you can be content at your current level, but usually if there's still some ego operating that is kind of hurting you, it will drag you down over time until you cannot take it anymore and you kind of forced to engage deeper with your own existence and the potential that you are. The danger that happens time and time again is to also become kind of like an intimacy junkie, where you are not just experiencing the intimacy that is available to you, and you're not just curious about what is possible, but you just constantly need to share everything and be super extroverted and just kind of get ungrounded in that sense. And this is very common through these existential realizations too, where you have like kind of an opening within your own soul, and then you are extremely intense for other people, like very extroverted, very expressive, talking a lot about the nature of reality and your existence and your realizations. And at this stage, there are oftentimes are deep realization that have happened in the mind, or in the sort of head area of awakening, like the intellectual sides. And oftentimes there's still like a lot of unprocessed emotion that still has to get synthesized. And in this stage, people are often like kind of overbearing, and also often have the tendency to want to save other people and see themselves within the savior narratives. And this is also a stage. It is pretty common to happen. It's just important to understand that this is not like the end stage. Like if you feel like everything is too open and you're too direct and too vulnerable all the time, then you can also pay attention to that, and you'll settle down over time. But at the end of the day, you'll find a kind of neutral state of existence where everything is pretty much there in its immediacy all the time anyway. And openness and intimacy is the quality of reality itself, and not really something that you can do anything about. All you can do is recoil from it and move away. And you'll find that even in the action of recoiling from reality and all of its potential, it will hold you anyway.